Eric Jenkins, I want to welcome you to the CloseTheDeal.com podcast. Now, you are based in Fairfax, Virginia, right outside DC. First, welcome. I'm glad to have you. Fellow podcaster. How long have you been podcasting?
Ooh, that's a good first. I want to say last name is Jennings, not Jenkins. That's okay.
Oh,
You're not the first person to do that.
Oh
and
my
you won't be
gosh.
the last.
Okay. Yes, that's my bad. That's okay. Yes. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. My high school coach actually called me Jenkins for the entirety of my senior season, and I think he knew by the end, but it became a running joke.
I've got it written down right here. Properly.
You do?
I read it. Yes, I read it wrong. Okay.
Oh, it's all good. Let's see. Okay, the question, how long have I been podcasting? Oh, geez.
Yeah.
3. Oh my gosh. When did COVID start? 2020? So it'll be 4 years in May.
Okay. We're going to come back to the podcasting piece.
Yeah.
So you're in Fairfax. I got to ask the question I always open up with is, where you're doing business with somebody, one of your clients, and we'll find out a little bit more what you do for a living here in a minute. Where do you take them out to do business, for dinner or lunch? Where would you take them?
So a big part of what I do is I train soccer players, youth soccer players. And if we're having a chat about their game, or if they want to get recruited by this college, or they want to look over film or whatever, probably going to Chipotle. If I'm being totally honest. Yeah.
There you go. I love it.
It's a nice balanced meal.
There you go. All right. So let me ask you this. What are you grateful for today, from the past? Who or what are you grateful for from the past who helped you get you where you are today?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say saying my parents is the easy one, but I think it's true. I had a lot of fights, obviously, with them when I was younger, like high school age, as I think most kids do. But as I got older, one of the things I realized was the qualities that they both had that I would say that I liked a lot, and then also was able to say, oh, I don't really like when you guys interact in blank way, right? Like as a kid, it sucks if your parents fight. And mine didn't really fight that much, but I was able to see like what went into that and say, okay, let me not do that in my relationship. And I was able to take all of the good things that they had and then take away the 1 or 2 or whatever little bad things and be like, I think that's a good framework. And they just gave me a really good foundation to become the person I am. So I mean, that's the easy one, but I think it's true.
No, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Our parents certainly lay a foundation for everybody, good and bad, for people. So let's share, before I ask you what the problem is you saw in the marketplace, let's share a little bit about what you do to address the problem.
Yeah. The 2 things that I'm doing mainly now are I'm a private soccer coach or trainer, and then a podcaster. And those are the 2 kind of big things that I keep my internet sort of space. That's how we met, and those are the 2 big things that I got going on at the moment. Okay,
so let's talk about, and the podcasting came first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you saw, I don't even know if you're using your podcast as a networking tool right now and getting a message out. And you had a problem that you saw in the marketplace that you said, this is my way to solve some issues.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I started our first episode of the podcast, I think was, I want to say like May or June 2020, something like that. The George Floyd riots had just kicked off, and I had a bunch of friends from college. We were having lots of long conversations because I'd seen some social media posts from them. I'm like, you guys are not like this. Like, let's actually talk about it. And because all I'm seeing is people yelling at each other, and it doesn't seem to be productive for anyone. Everyone is pissed off at something. Everyone's locked inside. Like, we might as well talk about it. We can't go anywhere. So we might as well at least get on the phone and talk or whatever. And so, yeah, that was basically the problem in the marketplace. And so the first couple episodes were very heavily centered around that. I had friends that were at I don't know if you recall the protest where Trump took the picture with the Bible upside down. I had friends that were like a block away when all that stuff happened with the tear gas and everything. And so we chatted about that for a lot. And then it slowly evolved into, let's say, a problem in my own marketplace, which was I realized I needed to be able to network and talk to people and basically provide a pseudo education for myself, which is what I've been able to do. I've been able to talk to people that I never would have dreamed of being able to talk to if not for this. And so it's morphed over time. But the yelling at each other was the original, I say, problem in the marketplace that needed
So it's
some
an
attention.
interesting concept because your friends are just losing their minds on social media, venting in all the wrong reasons, which social media lends itself to. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. It can be a great tool. It can be just detrimental to people. People say stupid things, and next thing their lives are flipped upside down because they caught saying stupid things. And you want it a constructive way. And this
Yeah.
is very intriguing to me because how old are you?
27.
27. So you see this a very different. So my generation is 50. I'm 57. When I tell people I'm doing podcasting, they're intrigued by it because can think of maybe one other person I know personally in my local market in my hometown that has their own podcast. What about yourself? Do you have other friends doing podcasts, or are you the unusual person?
I would say I'm the unusual one. I think there's one or two that have. That's not true. There's one. I have a friend named Chris. He's been on my podcast a few times. Him and another friend of mine, Kevin, they own a gym together. He's got a podcast, but it's solo. It's just him, and it's
Okay.
about 15 or 20 minutes about his musings in the morning. It's called the Mindset Switch. And then there's one or two others that are doing some small, like sports related content creation and this and that. But by and large, I don't think no one in my friend group has one that's like mine, I would say.
So
Or no
you
one in
hit
my
on
social circle.
so you hit on two things. You hit on let's have constructive conversations, and people are not going to be as inflamed because they can actually see each other when y'all are talking. You're not going to be people lose their minds. You also see this as an incredible tool, and I recognize this. I think we talked about this a little bit on mine when you interviewed me. Podcasting is just an amazing tool for self-learning. You're here to serve other people, but you also, just by virtue of doing it, you learn so much. And at 27 years old, you started this at 25, I'm guessing, when you started this.
20. Let me.
25.
If I Google something, is it going to take the camera away, or I'm good?
You should be good. Yeah. You're
I
still
think
there.
I want to say if I have the yeah. So I started this when I was 23.
23. Okay. So you started this, you had the insights at 23 years old to do this. You've learned a lot doing this. How many episodes are you into?
Oh, 150 something.
157. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be like 155 or something like that. Yeah.
I'm a third of where you are, and you've been doing this for a while. Now, how has it helped you?
My ability to communicate ideas, for sure, because you have to be able to communicate an idea to, maybe you have a similar idea, but you need to communicate it with two totally different people, right? So I speak with you one day, and then I speak with a soccer player who's 25, 26. The next day, he was playing professionally in somewhere. And we talk about a similar idea, which is, we talked about this on your episode. You can't have the lows you can't have the highs without the lows. Same thing in soccer, right? But to be able to communicate that similar idea to different people from a variety of different backgrounds and so that's a super important thing. And then the other thing that I think it taught me a lot was how to actually listen and take in what somebody is saying, not just to respond, but to actually listen and to try to understand what they're saying. And that came a little bit easier to me. I'd say I'm generally a curious person, but I was able to do that consciously and hone that skill. And so it really helps just in the world, right? If you have somebody, it's a lot easier to network with somebody or to have a conversation or a good first impression when the first time you meet them, and this is why I tell people, you don't have to care about, let's say we're at a networking event or we're at a dinner or whatever, you and I meet. I don't have to care about what you're doing after I talk to you, but for those 5 minutes that we're talking, I really care about what you're doing, and that makes you feel valued and like a real connection has been there. And for me, I really do care about what that person is saying for those 5 minutes, but with the understanding that I don't have to go home and worry about it, but it's not fake either. So that
Mm-hmm.
sort of ability, I think, was honed with podcasting, because you really have, because you can't fake it for an hour interview. You can't fake it for an hour conversation. It's a lot easier to fake it for 2-3 minutes at a time, but with an hour, you actually have to do it. And then, yeah, it just helps with life. So I'd say those are two big things, basically just communication skills generally. But
Yeah, and that's huge. Now, your generation, so y'all get beat up sometimes because they say, "Oh, all they have is this thing in their hand all the time," and there's some truth to that. From
yeah,
when they go, yeah, they don't know how to talk on it. They know how to text on. I'm holding the phone, but anybody listening to this, texting is awful. Texting is great. It's efficient, but it's an awful way to actually communicate, or even
yeah,
email, because you don't have the tone. You can't look at somebody in the eye. So that puts you in a whole different space. That puts you in a whole different space than most people your generation, for sure. And communications is critical. It is probably the most important skill that somebody has in business and life, because it affects everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this on your
Yeah.
interview on my show, the ability to communicate with all the different parts of the seafood industry.
Yeah.
After Katrina, it's like you're talking with the big companies, and then you're talking with the individual fishermen, and you're talking with and all
That's
of
right.
it's the same goal, but you
Yeah.
communicate with the big, like a CEO, in a different way that you would a local fisherman versus somebody who's running a gear shop, right? All those people have the same goal, but you need to communicate the same idea to them in a different way. And that skill, yeah, huge.
What is the name of your podcast? Let me pop in here for 1 second, because I've got some great news. I've got a brand new book coming out called Your First Franchise Roadmap. And if you've ever considered becoming an entrepreneur, going into your own business, but you'd like some guidance and you'd love to have a playbook to help you do that, Your First Franchise Roadmap will give you that guidance. It will lay out what are your options. Should you be an entrepreneur? Should you invest in a business, or should you invest in a franchise? And if so, what is the right model for you? I'll walk you through that entire process. Check out yourfirstfranchise.com/roadmap. Yourfirstfranchise.com/roadmap. Now let's get back to the show.
It's called World XP Podcast. I wanted to basically say I'm on a journey to experience the world with everyone listening. And then, but actually spelling out the world experience was a little bit unwieldy. And as somebody who plays video games occasionally, XP, experience points, is a thing that's in the video games. And we were like, looks good. And there's like World XP makes more sense than XP World. It just, I don't know. To me, it rolled off the tongue better, and then we just went with it.
I'm curious, what's kept you going for this long, since you're 23 years old doing this?
That is a very good question. It changes often. There's definitely been times where I'm like, what's the point? But then there's other times where, right before I met you in the group that we're in with Josh, I was almost like, I'll finish out the year and then I'll be done. But then I meet you and I meet a couple other exciting people, and then all of a sudden it's, let's go, we're grinding again. And it's cool because I've been able to pick your brain several times on different business opportunities and different ways to navigate my life, right? You have a lot more experience than I do, we'll say. But so I have an opportunity to learn and to network and to do that. And honestly, that at the end of the day, that's really what it is. I've been able to talk to a variety of professors from different universities and have a free. This is the other thing with side tangent with college. Like, I wish I had done college slightly differently, but this has given me the ability to go back and say, hey, so for example, Dr. Singh, he's a professor of Middle Eastern Studies. When Israel and Gaza is happening, I'm able to have him on the show and just pick his brain for an hour. And it's like, it's really cool because he's not teaching a class. He's teaching me about stuff that I want to know. And selfishly, that's cool because it's what I want to know. But also, I love learning. And so learning in a setting that works for me is really the thing that keeps me going, because for every missed guest or missed opportunity or canceled show, there's another one that pops up that I'm like, wow, that was a great conversation. And I'm sure you've experienced this when you have long conversations with people where it's like a good faith engagement of ideas and stuff. You leave that conversation feeling good, with a good feeling inside. Like you've both put an effort towards exploring something together. And it's really cool. So that, I guess, to boil it down, that would be it. But yeah.
Yeah. And you're educating an audience, giving people insights for sure. There's a piece you realize, oh my gosh, I've learned so much by doing this. And kudos to you because you reached out to me. You're the first young person that's reached out. I have another young guy on my podcast, but I ran into him and he reminds me of you. And he was networking at a live event for his business. And that's how we ran into each other. And he was telling me what he did. And I proactively asked him, but you found me, you reached out to me through this new network. We have both just started online for a podcast. And so we can both be better podcasters. So that in itself is a skill. And the beauty of podcasting is it's giving you, like you said, it opens doors to people you never probably would have otherwise talked to.
Yeah. 100%. You still got to give me the contact info to that guy that you were just talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to introduce you to him. He's got a great business. He's got an app that helps place college kids. I'm going to write that down right now so I don't forget, because if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget. He's got an app to help college kids pick up odd jobs while they're going to school, and they get paid good money. They'll average $40, $50 an hour when they're doing those types of jobs, which is really good money. It's not steady, but it's good money. Anyway, yes. So, but you reached out to me, and that's the thing that podcasting gives somebody the ability to do that, is to be able to reach out to somebody. What is your objective with it now? Is it shifted from when obviously you started for a very different reason. What do you want? What do you see for it going forward?
Just continue to learn, honestly, which is an ambiguous, open-ended goal. But there's a fair chunk of the internet that's, I want to be a podcaster so I can make money. And you will not be able to sustain that because it's so hard to make money off just podcasting. Like, it doesn't, like, you can make some money here and there. It's, oh yeah, I made 15 cents off this episode. It's cool. But so it's really, now it's about the learning and the approach to, like, the life skills and just like, how often do you sit down and talk with somebody for 30 minutes or, in my case, an hour or an hour and a half? Never. I don't know. How often do you do it besides your podcast?
Outside of podcasts, I'll do it and I'll network with folks, obviously, so that I'll have conversations like this. Yes.
Occasionally,
in person,
right?
Like what?
But it's not once or twice a week, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
So it fills that void, or like that niche for me as well, personally.
And for me, I'm using it. Okay, so we talked about the media piece. This is just an educational tool for what people understand why podcasting is so important, and why the communication skills are so critical for any business owner. Any business owner needs to be out front and be the voice of their business, and they need to take the risk to get on a podcast or to go in front of the media or whatever it is. But they've got to be able to pick up the phone or send an email or a text to see if they can even get on a show like you did with me. That's a step most people won't take. Many people won't even try it. So that's what you've done. And now you got to figure, okay, how can you use this to further your career? So we'll shift gears here in a second to your soccer, what you do with the kids, because I think that's fantastic. You're building a business. And we even talked about that in regards to franchising, because that can turn into a significant business if you want to keep going that route, doing it yourself. You can build your own business like the group that we work with. Let's just go ahead and shift gears. Let's go talk about the soccer. Tell us what you do. And this complements what you're doing right now with the podcast. Yeah. You also have a lot of people in soccer on the show and so forth. Let's talk.
Yeah. So it became a natural sort of offshoot. So I'd been playing soccer like my whole life, coaching teams and different things here and there. And I'd been at a field one day and I'd seen somebody like training, like I'll say training, like maybe a kid about 7, 8, 9 years, something like that.
Mhm.
And I was watching this guy try and teach this player a skill, and I was like, that's not actually how you do that.
Mhm.
And I bet that guy's getting paid oodles of money to do this. Like, one, okay, so if that guy's making money, so I can too. But then two, like, it just didn't sit well with me. There's loads of great, so like before I move on, like there's loads of great trainers in the area, and that guy might have been a one-off or whatever, but because loads of my teammates also do this, and
That's what I was
there's
gonna. I
loads
was
of
gonna
great
have you.
trainers. Yeah,
I was gonna have you qualify. What is your background? Because
yeah.
clearly you've
But
got.
I'm a semi-professional soccer player up in Northern Virginia, outside DC. I played for Major Arena Soccer League in the third division. I played in a tournament called TST, which is the soccer tournament. There's teams like Wrexham there and Dortmund and other. The prize pool was $1 million. It was a 7v7 tournament down in North Carolina. Lots of celebrity. Chad Ochocinco, back to Chad Johnson, was there. He had a team down there as well. So that's the level I've been playing at and the background I have. So yeah, a lot of my teammates are also doing some of this training stuff, and so there's loads of good ones in the area. So I just wanted to qualify that. But the inspiration was that one instance that I saw. And I started doing that and training people one-on-one, small groups, and that's the niche that I carved out for myself. Was I was able to add in the kind of the explosive power and the strength and conditioning with the technical, and not a lot of people have both. And then to combine it with the podcast, obviously lots of soccer connections, and I'd interviewed coaches and players, and they're naturally merging. And so right now I have 2 YouTube channels. One is World XP Soccer, where I post drills and clips from the soccer interviews that I do, and then World XP Podcast, which is the podcast itself. And so I'm toying around with different ideas on how to merge them a little bit more, but right now it's just the clips, and I've been re-releasing some of the old interviews on the soccer channel. But they are intertwined to some extent, I'd say. But yeah, that's the genesis of the soccer business and how they're intertwined at the moment. Does that answer the question?
Does it help you business? The podcast is it? Or is it?
Yeah, because so the podcast helps because I am able to talk with coaches and players. For example, a lot of semi-pro players in the area also coach youth teams. And so if I've got a teammate or a friend who comes on the show, then they can say, hey, this kid that I coach wants some extra training, and they can funnel them to me. So it works itself out in that way, the same with the other coaches and stuff. And then by the same token, the flip side, some of the older kids that I train are looking for teams to train with. And so I'm able to funnel those kids that way to various people that I've had on, where I've had different coaches and things on the show that I'm like, hey, I can reach out to that coach and I can say, hey, can this kid come to your practice this week? I think he's ready, deserves opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's able to go both ways.
So you, by virtue of your podcast, you're growing your business. Whether you're, it's a tool that opens doors, and you never know who's going to hear these shows. That's what I learned. That's what I learned from doing media. And I'll tell you how I got into podcast, and because of media, this was during the BP oil spill. I was during my time leading the seafood board, and we ended up creating a newsroom, and we became the media. We hired a former CBS News journalist, photographers, videographers, created the news stories, and that created a wave of media. What I learned from doing all that, thousands of interviews with the media we executed. But once you start getting this going and you sustain like you're doing, opportunities probably come your way as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to you because of this, because of what you've been. You don't know where that goes. Somebody's going to hear your story and realize, okay, this guy's got it together, whereas a lot of the other part of that generation don't. And they're going to see something in you, a curiosity, a willingness to learn. And that's going to help you mold your business. Do you want to turn your soccer training into a full-fledged business? Do you see that?
That would be the ideal, right? I love the game. I love coaching. I love teaching. I love learning. And I love soccer. And so all of those things mixed together is the perfect storm, I'd say. And like we talked about on the episode that you did on my show, finding something that you're passionate about that you can also monetize is where the crossroads meet for kind of life fulfillment. I think there was maybe one or two other factors to that we mentioned, but so yeah, that would be the ideal.
You need to study that soccer franchise I talked about. I'm not trying to convince you to get into that. I think you need to look at that and figure, because you got the skills. Now you just need to figure out how you put your systems and processes in place to build a business, build a business and duplicate yourself, because that's a huge business.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And there's lots of opportunity in the area and lots of ways to help. Like I've got a guy I know who started off doing this, and now he has a full youth club with 15 youth teams, and a men's team. He's trained people that are playing in Europe now, and he's turned it into a whole thing, and it took him years and years of work.
You're evolving into an entrepreneur by virtue of everything you're doing, whether you realize it or not, whether it's intentional. And
one or two people have mentioned it.
Yes, you are, because I know you did it to make extra money, probably to start, but it's turning into a business. Yeah. One of the brands I work with, that's a fitness brand, they train kids in college and high school and in college become professional Olympians. And they saw a need in the marketplace, and they found a better solution to it, and they turned it into a full-blown. They trained 2 million professional athletes.
Wow,
2 million athletes, Olympians, and athletes across the board.
Yeah,
not all of them obviously became Olympians, but they've trained over 2 million athletes, which is crazy. And it starts on a playing field with one ball and one coach and one player, just like you.
Yeah.
But how many kids are you training right now?
About 15 or so I've got consistently or semi-consistently. Yeah.
So you can build a business from that. You've got something. And you got the communication skills podcast. What's your vision for this? Is that kind of where your head is?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few different ideas, right? I mentioned Kevin and Chris earlier that they opened their own gym, their own space. And so that's definitely something maybe to consider long term. But yeah, there's a lot of different options for ways to do it. I mentioned the other guy that has his own youth club and youth teams associated with that brand now. There's a variety of routes to take, and I haven't exactly sorted out where I best fit, or maybe not where I best fit, but where I would get the most fulfillment out of that. Because I've coached teams before, and then I've done a variety of things around the youth soccer development, player development, and that is, to be honest, one of the things that I need to sit down and just like really hash out. Where do I really want this to be going? You
can define that. You've got some.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a few ideas. Some of them, that's the reach. That's the, like, that would be okay. And then, so like feasibility of some things, depending on, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's going into it.
The market is there. The demand is there. You know how to coach. You know how to build a team. You've been at the professional level. Mm-hmm. You've got something. There's no question about it. Now you just got to put those pieces together.
There's one thing. Can I mention one other thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's been, the way I look at things like that is I'm trying one thing, and if I don't like it, then I can tweak. But at least I'm aiming at something, and then maybe I get closer with where I'm aiming as I move. And so that's where I'm in the stage of I'll try this one, and I'll try this one, and then maybe I'll end up there.
That's what a soccer player does, right?
Yeah, we missed the goal. We missed the goal a bunch of times, and then eventually
it goes in. You got to keep practicing.
Yeah.
That's what business is. That's all about entrepreneurship. I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to do 2 things here. I want to ask you, what is your guidance to somebody in your generation going forward? Would you tell them that they're even considering accidentally getting in business like you, or doing a podcast?
So I'll start with the podcast one first, because I think that's the simplest one. And that is, good today is better than perfect tomorrow. I think Josh says that all the time. But you don't need that much. I've had the same set of equipment, maybe to a fault, for at least half the time that I've been doing the podcast, right? You need a mic that's semi-decent and a camera that's also semi-decent. And some ideas. And that's it, really. obviously the rest of it, the branding and kind of managing the social media and the channels is obviously important, but you just need to start somewhere, right? And then, yeah. So that would be the podcasting advice, I would say. And the business advice, I'd say, is, speaking from me personally, there are days that I do not want to train kids because they don't listen, or I'm tired, or whatever. So whatever you're going to get into, you have to make sure that it's a passion or it's something that you at least like doing. Because if you don't like doing it, same with the podcasting. If you don't like doing it and you're not consistent, it's not going to go anywhere. So those they work together. But those are the kind of that's what I would say is, there's no time to start like the present, man. That's it.
I love it. And that's true. There's no better time than now. And the next step is the most important step.
Yep, 100%. Because if you got an opportunity, so in my case, I had one client, I only had one player for a while. And it was like, all right, that's fine. And then you get two. And then it starts to snowball, right? The first one and the second one are the hardest ones. But if you like doing it, you can stay with it.
It happens naturally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It really does. That's what people got to understand. Once you get 2 or 3 under your belt, all of a sudden it starts clicking. Mm-hmm. But you got to keep going.
Yeah,
and you get
the consistency.
And you got that mindset from sport. There's no question about it. Yeah. There's no question.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't be worrying about, I still only have one player and it's been 4 months. I'm going to stop doing it. No, I'm still going to help this one player get better. That's the goal, right? The goal is to help players get better, not to make a lot of money. And then when you become good at it, I talk about this a lot on my show. The marketplace of skill and talent is, there's a reason NBA players are paid so much money, or Messi and Ronaldo are paid so much money. It's because they're the best in the world at a thing that other people value. So if you are good at the thing that people value, naturally people will come. So keep developing yourself and your own skill set and whatever it is you're doing, and people will come. Do some people get lucky? Of course. But at a certain point, you have to become like undeniable that you're good at what you're doing. So then people can't say, you know what, I don't want to work with that guy. Why? He's really good at what he does. But it doesn't matter, because by that point, somebody else will come in, and that person that doesn't want to work with you won't matter.
All right. Everything you just described is mindset from the beginning of this show to the end of this show, which I love. All right. I'm going to ask another question, and this is going to be something new. I'm going to experiment with this and see how this works. I'd love you to ask a question, and I may be my next guest, or might be the guest after that, or the guest after that. I'm going to give your question to. What would be a question you would want to ask one of my guests to have them answer?
I'm going to cheat right now because I know where you got that idea from. So I've got a few questions lined up.
By the way, great marketers, as you build your business, you're going to know how to do really good marketing. Great marketers, they're great marketers because they know how to take all the good marketing ideas, great marketing ideas, and use them themselves.
Yeah. I think I want to throw yours back at you. No, I won't do that. Okay, because yours was a good one. Okay, so I'll go with this one. Is your current role what you wanted to do when you were a kid? And if not, when and what made you choose your current path?
I love it. And right there, people can think about that for themselves. But I'm going to pass that question on to. It may be the next guest, or it might be 2 or 3 guests from now. Somebody's going to get that question, and I'm going to let them know who asked it.
Sounds good.
And I want to thank Eric Jennings.
There you go.
I want to thank you for being on the CloseTheDeal.com podcast. This is fun. You give me hope for the next generation, because you're a shining light and an example for others to follow. So I appreciate it.
I don't know. It's only one of me. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Had a good time.
Oh, I appreciate it too, bud. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
And that is a wrap with Eric, in 2 big takeaways for me personally, maybe some other things for you. Number 1, he had the gumption to message me, to get in touch with me to see if he could be on the show. And he used his podcast as a tool to do that, which worked great because I love his energy. I love his insights. And number two is this is all about communications. And any business owner better master the art of communications. That is the game changer, in my opinion, for everything. So going forward, do whatever you can to get yourself on a podcast interview, in the media interview, in an article written about you interview, whatever that is, do it. And I'll give you a tip regarding media. Whenever you get the opportunity to do media, someone reaches out to you, you respond immediately. You become the go-to source when you do that. If they've got to chase you down, they'll never come back to you again. All right. The drill. You know the drill. First of all, before I get to the drill, yourfirstfranchise.com. Check out yourfirstfranchise.com. I've got the brand new book I talked about coming out soon, and you can sign up yourfirstfranchise.com/roadmap, and I'll send you a free digital copy of it when it comes out. It's going to be on Amazon as well. On Amazon, I'm going to charge on Amazon, but 100% of the profits from the book are going to go to Make-A-Wish Foundation. And that's what this life's all about, giving back. So if you want the physical book, you'll have to go there. And finally, you know the drill. I love doing this. I love building the community. Help us build this community together. Like, share, subscribe, send an email to somebody with this episode that maybe you think should hear this. And be intentional and make today a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.